Tell me more. Tell me more about this youth group at church.
Huh?
You gave a talk to your youth group at church. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it was about materialism and not wanting to preoccupy our entire minds, our bodies, basically our spirit, our soul to worldly pleasures, right? Yeah. Or materials. And materials not just something that you can grasp, that you can touch, or taste or whatever, but it's just, maybe it's an intellectual property, like social media, right? Or information, like knowing so much, like having the gossip, having the tea. But like social media is like huge in our, in our society.
Well, especially that age group, it's how they communicate.
That age group, it's high school, 14 to 18, how they communicate.
Yeah.
But like they've lost their like personal skills.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at, what people have, and then that turns into like, hey, now I want that. Or if I get that, then that becomes like my identity. But it's like, is that really what God intended for you? Is it? Because then you start living this like false identity, this falseness of what you're not supposed to be versus the identity that God gave you at your baptism. Yeah. Yeah.
What an awesome opportunity for you to be able to put that into teenagers now rather than as a 45-year-old who's in business realizing that.
Yeah.
Like as an adult, not knowing what your identity is. I actually met the Lord when I was 30, so just 15 years ago. And when you realize that your identity is in Christ rather than in accolades from real estate agents because I'm a home inspector, or vying for my children's attention as I raise them, like having them be the center of my world. Yes, I love my children, but like having them be the center of everything. Then you lose yourself when you realize that doesn't fill your cup. So to pour into the younger generation to help them really understand who they are.
Yeah.
is super important. How does that conversation go around the kids then, like the youth?
Oh, well, first it starts off with like a huge, like we're like talking to them. It's a conversation more so less than like a talk. We're not talking at them. We're not lecturing them. They're coming from school, they're lectured all day. So we open it up. We're very friendly. We try to be like at the same level with them, but then we break off into boys and girls, and then boys talk with the older boys, and girls talk with the older girls. And it's like, hey, if you don't have an older brother, now you do. If you don't have an older sister, now you do. And it's whatever happens in these small groups, it's confidential. Like we're all there. Like maybe like 8 to 10 of us. It's like, listen, we're your brothers in Christ. You can trust us. Whatever happens here stays here. Like, obviously, if it's something like you're going to harm yourself or harm others, we'd let somebody know. Yeah. But it's like, hey, if you're struggling with like sins of temptation or whatever it may be for you in your age bracket, like I'm 15 years out of high school now. Yeah. It seems like, or what, 13 years?
It goes fast.
It goes fast.
It goes really fast.
But like temptations are almost similar, but like the trends are a little bit different. So like, I don't know what's like hot right now. Like, I don't know what TV shows they're watching or anything like that. I don't really even watch TV. Yeah. So it's like, what's hot? Even music culture? I don't know. So like, it's nice to be informed because they tell us, and that keeps me young. Yeah. But then I'm also like happy I'm not a part of that generation. Like, all right, you guys are not like to the level that I was whenever I was your age. But I mean, that happens in waves too, right? You probably think the same thing of me. It's like, hey, you're not as cool as I am.
But yeah, but our parents said that about us too, and our grandparents. Exactly. That's so generational.
You just have like the upper hand. So when you do have the upper hand, whether it's like in secularism or, in your faith, you want to be that big brother or that big sister, you do it in a positive way, right? Like Christ taught us, do everything with love, and if you depend on him, then he fills up your cup and then you can pour out into the others.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I was recently reading, I'm in the middle of a book right now. What is it called? Laws of the Universe in the Bible. Okay. And it talks a lot about like your vibration. And when you walk into a room, you're like, it doesn't feel right in here. That's a real thing. Like that's, Yeah. And one of the things that I have really been considering is when I go into conversations or when I go into situations, or when I change my mind about something, when I'm about to do something, does it feel light or does it feel like heavy or resistant.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a really good tool to teach young adults now. Well, especially at that age, 14, teenagers. But that's a really good tool to teach them. Like, does this decision feel light? Does it feel right? Because the only thing that matters is love, kindness, all the fruits of the Spirit. Like, you were created with those things. Go do those things. But if something feels heavy or not right, or dark, or whatever word you can use to describe that negativity, you really got to recalibrate and consider whether that's something that you should be doing, or the light choice.
Yeah, I've never read that book. I actually never even heard of it, but it sounds familiar to like something that's been like kind of replaying in my life. And it's the idea of like being familiar with God's voice. So if it's like, I think the kind of theme that you're going with is like, if it's resistant, if it's against what you're willing to do. Like sometimes things that we're willing to do and maybe even are in God's will can be scary.
Yeah.
Right. But you need to be trusting. You got to take what's called a leap of faith. We've heard that term a million times. It sounds so like fortune cookie and cliche. But like, yeah, it's true. You got to trust God. And if it's positive and it's good, then God will probably bless it for you. Yeah. You know, or maybe teach you a lesson that's positive for you. Yeah. But if it's like, you know, it's not good and you're still doing it and it's going against like your nature and you know what God's taught, or like what maybe your parents taught you in good faith, then yeah, maybe it won't teach you something good, or maybe it'll teach you a lesson, you know, maybe it'll burn your hand and you know not to touch the stove again.
Yeah, right.
But like going back to like familiarity and like knowing God's voice, just like whenever somebody slams the door into your home and you're on the opposite side, you know it's your husband that just slammed that door because you know how he moves, right?
That's a good example.
Because you spent so much time with him, right? You're just so familiar with his movement in your life. So like same thing with God. If you spend time with Scripture or with the Eucharist, with the Lord, then the way he moves and encounters you, you'll be familiar with him. So like, again, if you're not in a state of a good relationship with God, you know, and things are happening and moving, you get that feeling when you walk into a room, maybe you're just unsure of who is in the presence of you in that moment, you know, and it goes to, in Scripture, it's Ephesians 6, you know, we're at war with principalities of like, you know, it's a spiritual realm that we cannot see that's happening even in this moment,
That's
you
right.
know? But when two or more are gathered in his name,
there
he's present, you know? And I didn't know that you were going to have a spiritual conversation today at all. So, you know, and I didn't think I was going to be bringing on last night's talk into today's conversation. So that was amazing. So thank you.
So good.
I love talking about, you know, God's ministry. It's beautiful. Because he's done a lot in my life, and I know that, and I'm sure he's done a lot in your life, and I'm sure you know that, and you're familiar with his voice and what he has for you. And again, like it's a pleasant surprise to be talking about this with you, because we've done business for about 6 years now. And I know we've talked about God. You know, he's come up. He's been a conversation of topic, but never to like this depth. You know?
Because you know I'm usually in the attic, and you're showing your clients the house. So.
Yeah, that's right.
But one of the reasons I love the direction of this conversation is my oldest he'll be 11 next week. Okay. And one of the things that he's been talking about a lot lately is that he really wants to hear God's voice, and he is so very, he needs it to be tangible and explainable. And, you know, to some people, God, you just can't explain it. So I'm like, Isaiah, if you really want to hear God's voice, it's different for everybody. For me, it's audible. For some people, it's in a dream. For some people, it's a tingle in their tummy. Or for some people, it's like they get this idea and it's super exciting immediately. And that's just God like whispering these things into your mind. So it's different for everybody. But one of the things I told him is exactly what you just said. If you want to hear someone's voice, if you want to know them, you first need to lean in and learn about them. So he's just been like devouring the Bible, just reading as much as he can because he so desperately wants to hear his voice.
Yeah, at 11, it's such a challenge. Yeah. It's such old English. It's like, what does this mean?
Yes.
I would recommend, if he's not already doing it, like a Bible in a year challenge.
He started it, and because he needs to understand order, he started the chronological one. Yes. And thank you for that. Yeah. I think he's on the right path. I think he's seeking. That's what we're supposed to do.
That's what we're all doing, right? Yeah. Knock and open that door if you're interested.
I love it. So tell me. your solid foundation in faith, and then deciding to go into a career in real estate, how are you able to blend the two? Because we can't take that mask off when we then go to work and just be this different person. So how do you do?
What do you mean?
How do you do that?
Person?
Well, one of the struggles that I had, the whole reason for this setting for me is because I have lots of questions for other people too. I've gone through this personal journey of burnout and forgetting who I was in Christ and forgetting my identity and who I was as a wife, as a mom, as a business owner, as just a human. Yeah. Because I got my identity so wrapped up in getting business. I have to get that next home inspection. I have to feed my teammates. I have to, and I allowed all that pressure to pile up, and I wore all the hats, and I forgot to just release it, because this business was a gift from God. And I always said,
you do good business, by the way.
Well,
you do.
Thank you.
And that's a gift from God, right?
It totally is.
And
I suffocated it, I'm trying to think of this really crazy scene from a movie. I can't think of it. I'm thinking Will Ferrell. But so he gave me this gift, and I'm like, I need to take care of it. And I so suffocated it, and in return did not do myself a service. Like, I did not take care of myself. Yeah. I did not go back to him and say, all right, Lord, what do you want me to do next? I'm at a standstill, or this employee embezzled, or this employee started his own company. And so I let all of that just eat at me as if it was my fault, when really I just forgot. He gave this to me. Just be who I am and ask him for direction, and love my team really well, and make phenomenal partnerships with, with other people in the industry. So that's how I learned to start that direction, to say, okay, back to square one. So I can't be two different people. If I love the Lord and I know that this is my mission field, I have to be the same person everywhere. Yeah. So how do you do that in real estate? Because
I would say
real estate can be very competitive.
Yeah, it's super competitive. There's just in my county that I live in, there's 17,000 agents, and I'm not just working the county I live in. I'm working the whole state of Michigan. If I get a client that's up in the Upper Peninsula and they only want to use me, I could definitely go up there and work it. 9 times out of 10, I'll probably refer it out because it's just not my area. Yeah. But wearing the hat of hey, how am I going to differentiate myself from just being a businessman and also being a follower of Christ? Is that really what you're asking?
Absolutely.
So I try my best not to wear 2 hats where I'm only business oriented or I'm just Christ oriented, because when I want people to see me, kind of similar to what you're saying, and I had this conversation literally yesterday, the day before, and the day before. Literally, I think all week I've had this conversation. I love it. And it's funny because I didn't know this conversation was going to happen today, and it is. Thank you, God.
Praise God, yeah.
And I want people to, when they hear my name, they say, "Oh, he's a follower of God. He's a follower of Christ, more so, and he believes, he's a good Catholic man," versus, "Oh, Carlos Kachal, he's a realtor, in a prior life, he was, a personal trainer, and those things are true. Like you said, you wear many hats, and sometimes in one specific field, I'm a realtor, but I see some realtors, they're also photographers. I don't do that,
Yeah, right.
Some other realtors, they'll be inspectors. I don't do that. I focus mainly on the realtor aspect because, I have a lot of resource that I could provide for a client. If I'm new to the industry, or I should say not to the industry, but to the realm of buying a home, and I've never purchased a home, but I can go to somebody that's fearing of the Lord. They're going to be ethical. Now, in becoming a realtor, you tell, your examiner, I'm ethical, and you check that box. I'm not going to break the law. Yeah. But honestly, there's lots of shady, sketchy stuff that happens in the real estate industry. I'm not going to hide it. Nobody's going to hide it. It's just not talked about. It's just the truth.
Yep.
And I'm not here to like out everybody,
no, but
true. Like everybody knows. Even the people that are writing the laws know that there's sketchy, weird stuff happening in gray areas, behind closed doors, you know, under the table. Like, and if you are going to partake in that type of activity, that's great for you, you know, and it just says a lot about the character, right? Now, I don't. I try to stay away from that kind of stuff as best as I can, you know, and I close that door because I don't want to entertain that door. I want to burn that door to the ground.
Yes.
I like to invite good, wholesome, clean deals, you know, and I like to provide good, wholesome, clean resourcefulness. I'm very knowledgeable when it comes to real estate law. I like to pride myself in working with clients. I mean, you've seen me with clients. I mean, I get the deal pretty done pretty well. And
you have integrity, and it's obvious that you genuinely care about them.
Yeah, and every time there's a house that needs lots of work because of the issues, like you do work really well too. Hey, this is a bad roof, for example, or this is a bad furnace. It's not good for the next 4 days. You know, like you need to be honest, not just to close the sale, because if I just do one sale and I get it done and over with, and I kind of manipulated my way just to get through there, through to the closing table, and they're closed and I got a check and we get paid a lot, you know?
Right.
We get paid a lot. If I just want that one quick check, shame on me, because if in the next month or so the house is flooded or whatever because I told, you know, maybe a shadier inspector, not you, to say this and that, and they did it so they can get paid, and then I told them so I can get paid, then what? I get a measly check for maybe, you know, but then I don't build a relationship with my client and I burn them.
That's right.
You know, where am I leading them?
That's
right. You know, their home ownership is going to lead them to debt, you know, and maybe homelessness. I don't know what their finances are 9 times out of 10. That's between them and the lender. But if I could lead them to, you know, a deal that's honest, open, transparent, and I can communicate to them very effectively and articulate my words from you, you know, or any other inspector, like, hey, this is really what's going on with your house. It is a big deal, and here's what we're going to do. Or, hey, this is not a big deal, and here's what we're going to do. Then that's more open. They can trust me more. Yep. And then that'll lead to what? More referral business, which is what we really all want.
Only good can happen from that. Yeah.
If I want to be positive and I want positive, I need to do good. So much more good for them than they can do for me. Right? I mean, like, what does God do, right?
That's our job.
He calls us to be an imitation of him, and God's done so much that we could never repay. So you almost want to imitate that to the very, very, like, same example. Hey, I want to do more for my client than they could ever do for me.
Yeah.
And whatever I get back in return, thank God. And if I don't get anything, cool. You guys just
something good happened.
Like something great happened for you guys, and you deserve it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. How do you find a balance in your personal life with real estate? Because I know that you're involved at your church. Yeah. How do you, and sometimes I don't like to use the word balance because it feels very much like you can only do this or that. Sometimes I talk about it as a rhythm. Yeah. Because you can kind of do it all at the same time. But
you can.
What does that time freedom look like for you, and how do you decide? Well, one of the reasons I ask is because I know that you are very like God, family, business. You are very structured in your beliefs and the order of things. Yeah. So how is it that you keep that rhythm in your personal versus business life?
Well, it's just about being transparent with everything. So it's like, I know myself, and a lot of people know what I'm about. Like you just said, like God, family, business. And you said it's like, what did you say? What was
I said a rhythm rather than a balance.
So I mean, and I like to think of it more as like everything's in harmony, right? It's a nice sound. Everything sounds good. You know, it sounds good. And if I'm at business meeting, they know who I am because of my structure. Yeah. And if I could be in a business meeting and it could be 10 minutes about business, and the rest of the hour is, hey, how's the family? How's this? How's that? So it's like, where's my structure or my balance? Like my harmony is just because of like your identity. When people know who you are, they know what you try to like lean towards. And if it's just strictly business, if I'm only doing business with somebody, then maybe it'll only be like a 15, 30-minute business meeting. And it's like, all right, off to the next appointment.
Sure.
You know, not all the time. It's like something that's a conversation about Christ or God or something good, but
sure,
business is business, and God knows that He created me to do business and do good business, and other things at that. But when it comes to like just being harmonious or, having a good rhythm, it's just about being transparent with the people that you work with, like your identity. Hey, this is how I do business. And if that's how they do business too, then they will be harmonious with your movement.
And you attract those kind of people too. Like you'll attract those kind of clients. You'll attract those kind of agents to kind of team up with you or come to you for advice as they're growing, maybe like younger agents. When do you vacation?
When? Whenever I want.
Good.
Whenever I want. I mean, I don't usually go out of my way to like say, hey, I have to do it in this time and this day.
Yeah.
But like, I have a very small, tight knit group of friends, and every now and then we'll just say something about like being in a certain spot.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, let's just go.
Spontaneous?
Yeah,
really?
Spontaneous.
Good for you.
It's just a bunch of guys, and then sometimes we'll go with the family, the family, like me, my siblings, and my cousins on my mother's side. We all just went to Cancun.
Awesome.
Random day in the summer, Obviously, it was planned out a month in advance. We're all busy and whatnot. But like, hey, let's just go. All right, cool. We haven't done anything like that ever. So siblings got together, my siblings and I, my cousins, their siblings. It was like a nice big group. We just went.
I love it.
And it's something that we're thankful for. Not everybody I know can just get up and go whenever they want.
Yeah.
So it's like, thank God for having the ability to, one, move in that direction, have the finances to do it, and to be able to enjoy it.
I was just going to say that too, finances. So there's two things that I love about just being in this industry, especially as a business owner. So a real estate agent, you own your own business. You make your own schedule. You have your own. I think that the two things people want the most is time freedom and financial freedom. And so as your business owner, you have control over those two things. So so time freedom, get in the real estate industry, you'll get time freedom. And sometimes in slow, you'll get lots of freedom and time even when you don't ask for it.
Yeah, you're right.
But speaking of slower seasons or busy seasons in real estate, how do you, and I wasn't going to go this direction, but you said finances.
Yeah.
How do you budget along the year for yourself? Or is that something that here at this brokerage, you guys talk about openly to be able to budget throughout the year to be prepared for those slower times?
So, I mean, me personally, I've had relationships in the past, like my upcoming years, like teenagers, in my early 20s, where I've had built relationships with like financial managers and whatnot. And I'd always like ask these questions like, hey, where should I put my money? What should I do with it? Thank God, like my family was prosperous enough to provide for me. And I didn't have to worry about these things as a child. I worked when I was a kid, like in my teenage years, because I was desperate to have a job. My dad never told me, go work, never do this, do that. But like I had it in me I wanted to just work, and I don't want to yay me,
No, but you had that was the drive you had.
Yeah, like I wanted to work. My father is a very hardworking man, and there was times where we grew up, I'd only seen him at night because he was at work all day.
Yeah.
I didn't really see him.
Yeah.
So now that like I understood that, my teenagers, like I need to go get a job. I want to like be as hardworking as him.
Okay.
And that's like every like young man's dream, especially in like the Chaldean community. It's like, oh, I want to be like my dad, a hardworking man. And that's like the biggest like milestone.
Awesome.
It's like, hey, your father is a hardworking man. They came to America, no English, no money, and they developed a business, were successful, and they got out of their little slump situation and gave up their whole life for their wife and their kids. And it's like
legacy.
Legacy for sure. But then it's like, I could never redo that or repay that. Never.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, I'm going to work as hard as I can. I want my dad to be proud,
That's good.
Always, and I've heard some, nice things from him recently. So it's cool.
There you go.
Most Chaldean old men, they're a little stubborn. They got that tough skin, you don't want to show too much emotion.
Yeah. But getting the attaboy might be few and far between.
Maybe. Maybe. Yeah. It's not in English, so
well done.
But I mean, as far as like budgeting, my buddy always told me like, hey, get your finances in this. Maybe start like an IRA, dump money into it as much as you can. Get like a life insurance, something that you could dump into. And people always have this communication or misconception of like life insurance. It's not to get the people rich around you when you die.
Oh gosh.
Right? It's not. The idea is if you don't die, you can take the money back at retirement,
Yes.
It's to not die, right? Obviously things are unexpected. And if you do, then
it's to keep the burden from them.
Of course.
Not to make them rich.
Investing, don't spend your money frivolously.
Yep.
I don't want to say like I'm cheap, but I'd say like, I buy what I want when I want, and thank God for that. I try not to get so caught up, again, like we said earlier, materialism.
Yeah.
It's so easy, especially growing up. It's like, we want the coolest stuff. And it's like, hey, I have good stuff, right? Maybe it's not the coolest stuff, but like, I had a car. Might not have been the coolest car, but I got a car and it works great. At the time, I think it was like a Hyundai. Before that, it was like an Acura.
Great.
But they're all older and they worked phenomenally.
Yep.
And they got the job done. And I still got to my closings.
That's right.
So it did not matter.
That's right. Good.
But I had a vision for greater cars. I sooner or later ended up buying another car, and I didn't even know it was in my budget. But I, was frugal with my money, and I didn't compare myself. They say the spirit of comparison is like from the devil.
Yep.
It steals your joy.
Yep.
So I just tried to not feed into the spirit of comparison. Put my head down and work.
Good for you.
And like any good businessman or woman will say, it's like, hey, if you do that, you'll reach milestones and you'll wake up and realize, wow, I can't believe I'm already in this milestone. I didn't even realize I hit it.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt whenever I was driving my brand new Audi one day.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I have an Audi. And one day I just burst out into tears. I was like, wow, I'm in my car. I'm in the car that I've always wanted this car, and then fast forward, I sold that car and then now I'm driving a Tesla. I'm like, wow, now I'm driving a Tesla. I prefer the Audi, but the Tesla had a really good deal.
No, but consistency really compounds when you just stick with it.
It really does. It really does. And it goes back to like the harmonious thing.
Yeah.
Compounding like your community, who you are, and just staying to it, being consistent with who you are with others, and then they can recognize you, and then they'll see your identity, and then like your finances, that goes right into it too. If you're doing the right thing by the right people, the money comes along with it. It just does.
That.
It just does.
It's true.
You can't, as much as you try running away from it, it's chasing you.
Yeah.
People in this life will chase money, but that's not what you should choose, right? You don't expand the icon of money in your life, because then you're diminishing like the existence of God.
Yeah.
But expand your icon of God and who God is in your life, build that relationship, and he'll make known to you what you need to do, right? And then the money will follow.
He gives good gifts. Yeah.
The gifts are crazy.
It'll follow. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
One of my buddies, we were hiking a mountain in where were we? Colorado.
Awesome.
We're hiking a mountain in Colorado. We started talking about God. You're in this great presence. You're seeing
how can you not?
Yeah, he's talking about God. Who made this?
Yes.
And he just starts talking about his life, and he mentions something that resonates with me, and probably resonates with a lot of people who believe in God or have had, a godly experience. And it's like, hey, God said to him, if you trust in me, I will take you to experiences that you could not even have imagined for yourself. And sometimes we imagine grand, amazing things.
We think we have great imagination.
Yeah, like, having like crazy like financial goal, or
That's
like
right.
having like crazy, like, hey, I want this exotic vehicle, or hey, and it's like God said to him, trust in me and I will give you, something that's beyond your imagination.
That's amazing.
Like beyond my imagination, I'm going to think of the wildest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me
top that, God.
Top that,
And he's like, okay.
Okay. Yeah. That's easy. That's my breath.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you wish, I was going to say people, but what is one thing you wish real estate agents knew about themselves?
Oh, like you want me to speak on behalf of myself? Like, do I wish I knew about myself, or that agents in the industry should know
Like, yeah, the agents in the industry, what's one thing that you just wish your colleagues like knew about themselves? Like were true to about themselves as humans, in this industry?
That we're all the same. We're all the same. I see agents that are brokers as well. Mm-hmm. So like that's grand. That's a cool achievement. You know, you've been in the industry for X amount of years. Mm-hmm. You've done X amount of business per year, and then you took a test and you've achieved the brokerage. Like you're a broker now. Yeah. You're a real estate broker, so you can open up your own brokerage. You can be an associate broker for another company. That's just another achievement, which is beautiful, and it gives you like another higher rank. You're not just an agent, a salesperson, but you have more knowledge than the average salesperson. Yeah. Most salespeople, if they're good in their craft, will prioritize knowledge because there's two things in life that nobody can take away from you. One of them is your faith. One of them is your knowledge. And if I know how to build a great business and it fails one day miserably, I'll just go open another one.
Fail forward.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll just go open another one. So I think what my message would be to every agent or broker is that sometimes we have this entitlement because maybe we are a broker or maybe we have been in the industry a lot longer than maybe a newer agent. Mm-hmm. And you're no better than the next guy because there's plenty of business to go around. And if you have been in the industry longer than somebody, you don't know who they know. You don't know what they're capable of. Yeah. Right? You don't know their background. You know, so it's just give the benefit of the doubt to every agent, whether they're new or old or they're experienced or maybe they have all the accolades that you could put on a wall, you know? So I would just say like put the lenses of judgment away and you don't know who you're dealing with, you know, because I've done it myself where maybe I've even belittled somebody that was in the industry and I was like, hey, you don't know what you're doing. Like, just stop, you know? And even if they don't, you should do it with a frame of like true justice, love. Don't be like, rude.
Teach, don't judge.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Teach, don't preach.
Bring them along. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
But bring them along and just say, hey, listen, you're doing this. You know, it should be done like this. I don't know who taught it to you like that. Maybe your way is not always right also. Mm-hmm. So just try to be understanding of, where they're at, who they are, and don't judge them. Yeah. Because you don't know what they're capable of. You know, in a year, they could be the top producer at your company.
That's right.
You know, in a year, they could be your boss. You don't know. I've seen that happen. In a year, they could be out of business or you could be out of business. Yeah. So it goes both ways.
Be kind. Yeah.
Be kind because you never know when it's going to come back.
Yeah.
I see it in this industry. We do a lot of like favors for one another. Mm-hmm. Hey, can you go do the showing for me? I'll pay you $100. Go do this open house for me. Go babysit my client at an inspection. I'll pay you this, that. You know, the way I like to do business is, hey, I'll go do you this favor. Don't pay me. I told them, hold off on the money. I was like, you know what I want in return? I was like, you owe me one.
That's good.
Oh, yeah. I think that's better than any monetary amount.
Well, I think that's true community too. Let's just help each other get this done, and we're all going to succeed.
I agree. Yeah. In our industry, sometimes you don't want to help everybody. It's like you're on Gordon Ramsay, like Top Chef show. It's like, hey, can I get a little piece of butter? No, you can't. No, it's going to make your meal better than mine. You're good. I just saw that on a reel recently. But somebody did give that chef a piece of butter, and that chef that gave away the butter, he's the one that won the challenge.
Of course he was.
Yeah. So, and he said, hey, if she wins, that's what it was supposed to be. I'm still a good guy. That's all that matters. And he's right, Yeah. So that's what I try to do in my own industry. Hey, don't judge. Try to be the good guy and help out as much as you can. And in return, I hope that they return the same favor. That's good. Yeah.
Carlos, you are a man of integrity.
Oh, yeah, I try to be.
Thank you so much for just being authentic and transparent about who you are and what you believe in and how you bring that into business. So it's a big deal and a pleasure to be working with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.